help people with problems.
Problem solver.
I'm more of a problem eliminator.
The truth about 1970s British cinema isn't as glamorous as the headlines made it seem. Behind the red carpets and champagne parties, a new kind of star was quietly emerging: young, handsome actors whose biggest asset wasn't always talent, but charm, youth, and the powerful women they were linked to. From Timothy Dalton, Michael York, and Simon McCorkindale to John Bindon, Oliver Tobias, and Robin Asquith, some built lasting careers, while others became trapped by the very image that made them famous. But how much of these stories is fact, and how much is pure tabloid myth? Stay until the end, because one actor was even rumored to have connections to British royalty. And we'll separate the documented truth from decades of sensational gossip. Before we begin, subscribe to Sterling Legends for more untold stories from Britain's golden age of cinema. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Gentleman Gigolo Simon McCorkindale. His breakthrough came with Death on the Nile, where he played Simon Doyle. The character is poor, handsome, utterly charming, and he pursues wealth by marrying a rich heiress. But here's the thing most critics missed. McCorkindale didn't play him as a villain. He played him as a man genuinely present, attentive, affectionate, the perfect illusion of a devoted husband, which is why the character is so deeply unsettling. He showed audiences what an emotional predator actually looks like. He doesn't snarl, he smiles. After the film's release, producers couldn't get enough of this image. He was beautiful, blonde, blue-eyed, impeccably dressed, but he was educated beauty, not John Bindon's street tough, dangerous energy. This was a man who looked equally comfortable at a Belgravia dinner party or attending an auction at Sotheby's. He represented something new for 1970s British cinema, the romantic predator who didn't need force, only finesse. The press quickly constructed his public mythology. He was linked with older, more established actresses. Whether these relationships accelerated his career or merely appeared to is the central question nobody could definitively answer, which of course made the story even more interesting to tabloid editors. McCorkindale became the template for what would follow: the polished young man who could flatter a wealthy woman simply by being present and agreeable. Chapter 2. The Dependent Alan Lake, A.N.D. Diana Dawes. Our second entry is more complicated because it's genuinely tragic, and it shows what happens when the gold digger fantasy crashes into actual human dependence and psychological deterioration. Alan Lake was a serious actor with genuine talent. Diana Dawes was one of Britain's biggest glamour stars, and she was nearly a decade older, wealthier, and far more powerful in the industry. When they met in 1968, the die was cast. Diana was already famous. Alan was still struggling. To the tabloids, this was irresistible. Here was established star marrying the handsome younger man. The gossip writers quickly constructed a narrative. Diana accepted work only when her husband got roles. Anyone who wanted Diana Dawes had to take her husband too. It wasn't entirely untrue. Professional dependence, emotional reliance, and financial disparity created an arrangement that looked glamorous from outside and suffocating from within. They lived in a mansion famous for wild parties. Behind closed doors, as is so often the case, the situation was considerably darker. Alan reportedly despised being introduced as Mr. Dawes. He wanted respect as an actor in his own right, but the career boost he'd received through her connections came with a psychological cost. He couldn't shake the feeling that none of his success was truly his. In 1984, Diana died. Without her name, her money, her industry connections, and frankly, her emotional scaffolding, Alan Lake's world collapsed. Only months later, he took his own life. What we're looking at here isn't a success story. It's a portrait of what happens when someone builds their entire identity, professionally and emotionally, on someone else's foundation. When that person is gone, there's nothing left holding up the structure. Chapter 3. The Emotional Drifter Murray Head in Sunday Bloody Sunday. Now we move to perhaps the most unsettling portrait of the archetype. Murray Head's performance in Sunday Bloody Sunday didn't just present the kept man fantasy, it documented the precise emotional mechanics of how that arrangement actually works. He played Bob Elkin, a handsome young artist simultaneously involved with two older lovers, Glenda Jackson's lonely recruitment consultant and Peter Finch's middle-aged doctor. Bob doesn't work, he doesn't commit. He moves between these two people, allowing them to feed him, house him, support him, and compete for his affection while he offers nothing concrete in return. What's brilliant and deeply disturbing about Head's performance is his emotional distance. He's not cruel, he's indifferent. His youth, his beauty, his casual attitude, his willingness to let other people organize his life around him, that is his power. The people with money, homes, careers, and social status are the ones actually dependent. He holds all the leverage because he cares the least. The film industry immediately connected Murray Head with this image. He became the beautiful drifter who could enter someone's settled life and rearrange it entirely, all while maintaining perfect emotional detachment. Older, wealthier people could project their fantasies onto him while he remained free to leave whenever it suited him. His later career largely retreated from this image, but in 1971, for one brief, unforgettable moment, he was cinema's clearest portrait of what happens when someone weaponizes youth, beauty, and complete emotional unavailability. Chapter 4. The rising classicist Timothy Dalton and Vanessa Redgrave. Timothy Dalton eventually became James Bond, which tells you something about his actual talent and range. But in the 1970s, tabloid coverage of his life made him look like something far less impressive. A handsome younger actor benefiting from an older woman's fame. Vanessa Redgrave was and remains one of Britain's most respected actresses. Award-winning. Politically fearless, connected to one of the country's most prominent acting families, she was nearly a decade older than Dalton and exponentially more powerful in the industry when they met on Mary, Queen of Scots in 1971. Dalton was classically trained and talented, but he was still rising. Through Redgrave, he gained access to theatrical circles, influential artists, political connections, and producers at the absolute top of the British industry. The press found this dynamic irresistible. She was the star. He was the handsome companion benefiting from her reflected glory. The image reportedly frustrated him intensely. He didn't want to be Vanessa Redgrave's boyfriend. He wanted to be Timothy Dalton, an actor of significance in his own right. Their relationship ended in the mid-1980s, and yes, he did eventually get that respect. But during the 1970s, his romance with Redgrave became Exhibit A in how an older, influential woman could shape a young actor's entire public identity, whether he liked it or not. The broader question beneath this, how much of his eventual success was built on that foundation? We'll never know. Neither probably did he. Chapter 5. The fantasy figure Robin Asquith. Here we arrive at the point where the archetype becomes almost deliberately comedic. Robin Asquith became one of the highest-paid actors in British cinema by the mid-1970s, and it had almost nothing to do with Shakespeare, serious drama, or any traditional measure of acting skill. He became famous genuinely, massively famous for the Confessions films, Confessions of a Window Cleaner, Confessions of a Driving Instructor, and their various sequels. In these movies, he played an ordinary, working-class young man who repeatedly attracted lonely, wealthy, often older women. He provided youth, energy, charm, and physical attention in exchange for comfort, excitement, and access to a better life. British audiences understood the fantasy perfectly. This was wish fulfillment from both directions. Women imagining they could have a beautiful young man's attention, and working-class men imagining they could parlay physical attractiveness into wealth and status. Asquith accepted the archetype completely. He became Britain's fantasy boy, tanned, shaggy-haired, grinning that famous grin that suggested he found the entire arrangement genuinely delightful. Critics dismissed the films as cheap entertainment, but Asquith knew exactly what he was selling and to whom. By the middle of the decade, he was among the highest-paid actors working in British cinema. Not because of dramatic range or theatrical training, because producers knew that his image, his body, and his willingness to be an object of desire would fill seats. The tabloids loved photographing him at fashionable nightclubs with older, glamorous women. The rumors circulated which famous actresses were interested in meeting the man behind the screen character. Asquith played along because he understood the game. Youth and charm had immediate economic value. But here's where the story turns. As he aged, the offers slowed dramatically. By the 1980s, producers struggled to imagine him in any role besides the young gigolo. The image that had made him one of Britain's most bankable stars became a cage. Robin Asquith learned perhaps more brutally than most that careers built on physical appeal have a precise expiration date. Chapter 6. The Refined Predator Michael York. Michael York occupied the opposite end of the respectability spectrum from John Bindon. Blonde, blue-eyed, classically trained, he looked like the kind of man who would recite Shakespeare. And he did recite Shakespeare. But throughout the 1970s, producers used him repeatedly for a very specific type of character, the handsome, refined young man who entered the homes and lives of older, wealthier, more powerful people through romance. In Something for Everyone, he played Conrad, a poor drifter who systematically seduces his way into a wealthy family's castle. He charms the Countess's children, then the Countess herself. His romance is actually a calculated career move. This isn't love, it's a plan. The same theme reappears in Cabaret. York played Brian Roberts, a writer who accepts luxury gifts, expense-paid trips, and gold cigarette cases from a wealthy baron in exchange for affection and companionship. York plays these roles without shame or desperation. He simply allows wealthier, more powerful people to desire him and support him in exchange for his presence. Directors recognized something crucial. York's appearance and training allowed him to suggest gentility while playing characters who were fundamentally mercenary. He looked like someone you'd trust. He looked educated, refined, properly dressed. A woman could introduce him to her friends without embarrassment, and that social acceptability was precisely what made him valuable. Michael York became the gigolo who looked like a prince polite, educated, impeccably groomed, welcomed through the front door by the wealthy women and influential men he systematized in seducing. Chapter 7. The Dangerous Outsider John Bindon. John Bindon arrived from somewhere entirely different. He wasn't classically trained. He came from the streets of London, had worked as a merchant seaman, carried a criminal record, and was known for a rough personality and a violent reputation. In the glamorous world of 1970s London, those credentials were, paradoxically, valuable. Wealthy society women were reportedly fascinated by his working-class toughness, his confidence, and his stories from the underworld. Bindon understood that their attention could open doors that acting training never would. His rough appearance made him authentic in a way a polished drama school graduate could never be. One of the most important connections in his life was aristocrat and model Vicky Hadd, daughter of a baronet. She was reportedly drawn to his raw masculinity and street background. Through her, Bindon entered a world of expensive parties, luxury cars, champagne, and most importantly, connections to influential people in British cinema. He moved quickly into significant films' Get Carter performance, where his authenticity as a dangerous man made him perfect for dangerous roles. But the most famous part of Bindon's social life was his reported connection with Princess Margaret. The truth of this relationship has never been established and remains surrounded by rumor. However, Bindon did spend time in royal circles, and the association increased his celebrity considerably. For a brief period, he seemed almost untouchable, a street criminal elevated to royal social events. The lifestyle didn't last. His violent temper reportedly pushed away many of the people who had welcomed him into their circles. A major legal case near the end of the 1970s damaged his reputation and ended his fashionable celebrity status. Bindon's story shows what happens when charm and connections protect someone from consequences for only so long. Eventually, behavior catches up. Chapter 8. The Troubled Beauty. Peter McEnery became associated, perhaps unfairly, with one of British cinema's most disturbing character portraits. In the cult film Entertaining Mr. Sloane, he played a young, muscular drifter who used his beauty, charm, and physical appeal to control a middle-aged brother and sister living together. His character doesn't seek work, he doesn't build anything. He allows older people to desire him and uses that attention as leverage to secure a comfortable place in their home. For conservative British audiences of the time, this was genuinely shocking. This wasn't a hero. This wasn't a gentleman. This was a handsome predator with an innocent face, and audiences were fascinated and disturbed in equal measure. After the film's success, the public began conflating the actor with the character he played. The press presented him as a perfect boy toy. Gossip writers suggested that attention from older, influential people may have accelerated his rise in the industry. These stories were often based on rumor rather than documented fact, but they created a public identity that followed him everywhere. The industry's response was predictable. Producers offered him similar roles repeatedly. He played attractive, dangerous, available men beside older leading women. His beauty and physical presence seemed more valuable than his range or his training. What he actually wanted, respect as a serious actor, was consistently withheld. McKennery reportedly became frustrated with this image. He returned to the stage to prove his talent and range, but his 1970s screen legacy remained permanently attached to the young man who used charm to enter and control the lives of older, wealthier people. His story shows precisely how quickly beauty can become a career tool, a source of fame, and ultimately a trap. Chapter 9: The Mysterious Lover. Oliver Tobias became one of the most visible representations of the 1970s gigolo archetype, so visible, in fact, that his screen image and his public reputation became almost indistinguishable from one another. Born in Switzerland, Tobias made London the epicenter of his professional and social life throughout the 1970s. With long, dark hair, a strong build, and an intense, mysterious expression, he matched a precise fantasy image that appealed to women throughout the decade. His major breakthrough came through Joan Collins, one of the most powerful women in British entertainment at the time. Collins needed a leading man who could match her forceful screen presence. Tobias was cast opposite her in The Stud, a film based on Jackie Collins's world of glamour, excess, and moral flexibility. He played Tony Blake, a nightclub manager who used charm, romance, and relationships with women to improve his social position. The tabloids immediately constructed rumors around the casting. Some suggested that Tobias's chemistry with Joan Collins extended beyond the screen, though no evidence was ever produced. These stories perfectly served both their purposes. They turned Tobias into the stud both on screen and in the public imagination, while confirming Collins's image as a woman who could attract desirable men. Tobias was regularly photographed at fashionable London clubs with glamorous women, including women older and more established than himself. The press used these photographs to suggest that his private life mirrored his screen roles. While Tobias did have legitimate acting experience, his 1970s fame depended almost entirely on his physical appeal and marketability as a fantasy figure. Producers repeatedly asked him to remove his shirt, maintain an air of mystery, and attract older leading ladies rather than demonstrate dramatic range. That image created immediate fame, but also became immediately limiting. Oliver Tobias's career teaches us something the archetype keeps repeating. Beauty opens doors rapidly, but closes them just as fast when the beauty fades. Chapter 10: The Bad Boy. Our final entry brings us to Lee Lawson, who became famous not merely for his dark, serious appearance and intensity, but for his highly publicized relationship with one of British cinema's most beloved older stars, Hayley Mills. Lawson came from a working-class background and already possessed talent and screen presence, but by the mid-1970s, he was a respected working actor without household recognition. That changed when he appeared with Mills in a stage production. Mills had grown up as a famous child star, a Disney icon, and was widely perceived as representing innocence and wholesomeness. She was already wealthy, successful, and connected throughout British and international entertainment. Lawson represented something very different. The press presented him as rougher, divorced, a self-proclaimed bad boy with a reputation for breaking hearts. When their stage romance reportedly became actual romance, the tabloids erupted. Suddenly, Lawson wasn't simply another supporting actor. He became the man who won the heart of Britain's beloved Pollyanna. Magazines that had previously ignored him now requested interviews because readers were fascinated by his connection to Mills. His face appeared in gossip publications. His perceived value to producers increased substantially. Industry observers suggested, though never with definitive proof, that the romance accelerated his career as much as his acting talent. The tabloid story became indistinguishable from his actual professional advancement. Lawson later appeared in The Stud alongside Oliver Tobias, which reinforced his image as the dark, confident lover whose cinematic purpose was attracting glamorous and powerful women. But this image became a golden cage. He was frequently described simply as Hayley Mills's boyfriend, and that label often overshadowed his own talents. Roles repeatedly offered him the same dangerous seducer archetype rather than demonstrating his actual range. Their relationship was serious, they had a son together, but eventually ended. Afterward, Lawson had to reconstruct his professional identity outside Mills's shadow. For years, that romance remained central to his public image and defined how the industry understood him. What emerges from examining these 10 figures isn't judgment, it's pattern recognition. The 1970s entertainment industry created and consumed a specific archetype, the beautiful young man who could provide companionship, romance, and fantasy to older, wealthier, more powerful women. Some of these men used this dynamic intentionally, others had it imposed on them, some built lasting careers, others found themselves trapped by the very image that initially created their fame. The broader question worth considering: how much has actually changed? The specific mechanism might look different in the Instagram age, but the fundamental transaction youth and beauty exchanged for access, opportunity, and accelerated success remains remarkably consistent. The glamour obscures the mechanics. That's precisely what makes it worth examining. If you made it this far, you clearly have an appetite for the real stories beneath entertainment's surface. Subscribe for more deep dives into Golden Age Hollywood, British cinema, rock history, and the scandals that shaped entertainment's most interesting era. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss new uploads, and please tell us in the comments which of these 10 surprised you most. What aspects of 70s showbiz culture do you want us to explore next? Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.